He walked in wearing a dusty coat. No one looked up. No one cared. But when the waitress slipped him a note, the silence in that room cracked wide open. The steakhouse glowed gold in the twilight. Soft jazz from hidden speakers. Polished cutlery. Wine swirling in tall glasses. But when the door creaked open and he walked in, heads didn't turn. They twitched, like something had entered that didn't belong. He wore a faded coat. Shoes clean but tired. Skin dark as molasses. Age? Late 60s maybe. Posture like a man who once stood tall. Now bent slightly by time, he asked the hostess for a table. She blinked, then smiled, the kind that stretches polite but forgets to reach the eyes. Do you have a reservation? No, ma'am. A pause, not a flicker. Her fingers tapped something on the counter. Well, we're a little full tonight. Could you wait at the bar? There were 4 empty booths behind her. He didn't argue. Sure. The bar was glossy, expensive, the kind that made you second-guess your outfit. That he sat, a lone bartender. Took 10 minutes to notice him. When he finally arrived, his voice was tight. Just water, sir? No, the man said gently. I'll have the T-bone. Medium rare, mashed potatoes, greens, and sweet tea if you've got it. The bartender hesitated, then scribbled, then vanished. Around him, people whispered, not loud enough to hear, just enough to feel the group of men in crisp suits eyed him. One chuckled into his bourbon glass that a woman in pearls glanced his way, then turned sharply, like secondhand smoke had brushed her shoulder. It wasn't hate. It was something quieter, the absence of hospitality. But she saw him, the older waitress. Her name tag read Loretta, lines on her face, tight gray bun, a limp in her left leg. She watched him for a moment before walking over. You sure you want that T-bone? She asked, voice smooth like blues on vinyl. He smiled. It's still good here, right? Best on the block. Just making sure you ain't trying to impress nobody. He chuckled. Ain't nobody here to impress. She scribbled something onto a slip and slid it into her apron. I'll make sure they get it right. As she walked away, the manager intercepted her. Young, hair too sharp, tie too tight. What you doing? She shrugged, taking care of a table. That guy. He tilted his head toward the bar like the man was a stain. Loretta didn't answer. Behind the kitchen window, the cook snickered. You see that old guy? Man looked like he walked in from the bus station. He ain't from around here. Probably gonna tip in quarters. The man sat still, hands folded, eyes watching every corner of the place. A S, if it once belonged on a S, he knew every crack in the wood, every song in the playlist, every menu changed since 1985. His food arrived, wrong steak. Overcooked and oh sweet tea and oh apology. He took one bite, chewed slowly, then pushed the plate away. He in complaint didn't raise his voice, just leaned back like he'd been expecting this the whole time. Loretta came back with a refill of water and a tight jaw. I'm sorry, sugar. He nodded. It's all right. She glanced around, then slipped a folded note beside his napkin. It read, I know who you are. He looked up for the first time that evening. His eyes truly met someone else's. She and flinched, didn't look away. She smiled, a real one. But just as he reached the note, a loud voice cut through the room. Hey, is there a problem here? It was a manager, striding over, puffing like a rooster, 2 waiters trailing behind him. Sir, we're going to have to ask you not to harass our staff. The man froze. Loretta's hand went to her apron, slow and shaking. I wasn't. The man started, but no one was listening. He stood up, quiet, controlled, then said, I built this place with my hands. Laughter erupted from under the tables. Sure you did, old man. The manager stepped forward, chest high. You're disturbing the guests. Then leaned in. You people come in here thinking. He didn't finish, because a man, still calm, still dignified, reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a set of keys. They clinked on the polished bar. One of them, branded with the restaurant's logo. The keys sat on the bar like a confession. Polished, heavy, familiar. The logo engraved on the fob hadn't changed since the grand opening in '86 that some of the guests noticed. Most didn't care. The manager stared at them, then at the man. "Where'd you get those?" The old man answered without moving his eyes. "From the architect who designed this place." Then softer, "From the brother who poured its first foundation." The tension broke. Not like glass shattering, but like a joint popping back into place. Uneasy, audible, felt. Loretta took a step back. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, but the weight of truth she already knew in her bones. He wasn't lying. She remembered those eyes. Younger, prouder. On opening day, he'd worn a red tie and carried a clipboard, not a cracked wallet. But now, he was standing in a place that forgot him. The manager crossed his arms, voice lowering to a hiss. "You trying to scare people with stories, old man?" A couple at the booth next to the bar leaned closer, pretending not to eavesdrop. The man didn't raise his voice. He just turned slowly and pointed to the back wall, that Tio, the black and white photo, half obscured by wine bottles, .5 men in hard hats. One woman with a clipboard, a young black man in a suit. His smile unshakable, his eyes, the same ones now locked with the manager's. Loretta whispered, "That's you?" He nodded once. "And this," he said gently, "was never meant to be just a restaurant. It was a refuge, a rebellion served rare." That's when the young waiter stepped forward, nervous. Conflicted, he looked at the photo, then at the man, and said what no one else had the courage to. "If he's the owner, why is his name not on anything?" The man's lips curled slightly. "Because I believe legacy didn't need a nameplate." He sat back down, tired. But maybe that was a mistake. The manager waved a hand. "Okay, enough drama. Finish your meal, sir. Then please leave." Loretta stiffened. He ordered the T-bone, she said, sharp as a broken plate, and got the wrong cut. The manager raised an eyebrow. "And?" Loretta stepped between them. "I'll go back and cook it myself." You could hear a pin drop. The bartender blinked. The waiter held his breath. The manager scoffed, but the man, the owner, just nodded. "Appreciate you." She disappeared behind the kitchen doors at eye end that small space, lit by flickering fluorescent tubes. She tied her apron tighter and lit the burners like she was lighting a fuse. Meanwhile, out front, the whispers turned into questions. Is it really him? Why would he come in like that? Maybe he sold it? He's probably just looking for attention. The man sat, eyes closed, listening to them rewrite him in real time. He didn't flinch, because he'd lived this once before. When he first tried to open the place, the bank said no. Then the city inspector kept losing the permits. One day, someone spray-painted wrong side of town on the front glass. But he built it anyway, and now it belonged to people who never knew the cost of the foundation. Loretta emerged with a fresh plate, perfectly cooked, searing hot. She placed it in front of him gently, then leaned close and whispered, "For the hands that laid this brick." The old man picked up his fork and took a bite. Juice ran down the edge, silence fell like snow. And someone at a corner booth finally said it out loud. "We never even asked his name." Outside, dusk had melted into darkness. Inside, the air had shifted. The quiet wasn't peaceful, it was electric, like the pause before a lightning strike. The old man chewed slowly. Not just a steak, but the memory it carried. Loretta stood beside him, not as a server now, as something closer to a witness. The manager was pacing in the hallway, phone to his ear, voice hushed but angry. "I don't care what his story is. He's causing a scene. No, he doesn't have proof. He just walked in and claimed the place." A pause, and "I'm handling it. He won't be here long." Back at the bar, the younger waiter finally broke the silence. "Sir, if you really started this place, why come like that?" The old man looked up, eyes patient but tired. "Because when I came in wearing a suit, I was invisible too." The waiter blinked. "What do you mean?" The man exhaled. "When I wore success, they smiled at me, but it was a performance, and I got tired performing." He leaned back, told him how it began. How? 40 years ago, he'd been a black chef with Southern roots, trained in a French kitchen, but turned away from every fine dining job in town. How the banks laughed when he asked for a loan. How one finally said yes, but at 12% interest. How he saved for 5 years, flipping pancakes at a roadside joint, Just about a lot. He built this place himself. Bricks, recipes, name. All of it. He staffed it with anyone who'd been told no too many times. Ex-cons, single mothers, immigrants, dropouts. He didn't put his name on the sign that he put on the payroll. But over time, things changed. Investors came in. They bought his silence. Slowly, in stages, changed the menu, changed the staff, changed the vibe, and eventually they forgot not just him, but why the place existed. That's why I came back, he said, voice gravel soft, to see if the soul was still here. Loretta looked around the room. Clean linen, fake laughter, plastic smiles. She shook her head. Doesn't look like it. In the kitchen, someone whispered, why is he making such a fuss? Isn't he retired? Another replied, he should be grateful we even let him sit down. The manager returned, this time with a forced smile. Sir, he said, management has decided we'd like to comp your meal tonight, as a gesture of goodwill. The man looked at the untouched water glass, then the overcooked steak pushed aside. He nodded once. That's generous. Then added, would have meant more if it came without pressure. Loretta placed the bill anyway. Blank. Just a word, paid, scrawled across it. The man reached into his coat pocket. Not for a wallet, but for a crumpled piece of yellowed paper. He handed it to her. She unfolded it gently. That IT was the original payroll sheet. First month. Handwritten names. Hers was third on the list. She stared at it. Then at him. You kept this? I never throw away what matters. Tears welled. But she blinked them back. The room had grown quieter. People were watching now. Some with curiosity. Some with shame. One woman looked like she wanted to clap, but didn't. Because even in that moment, approval still felt like a transaction. The manager, frustrated, spoke again. Look, you had your steak. Your little speech. Let's not turn this into a protest. The man stood up. Not loud. Not angry. Just finished. You're right, he said. This ain't a protest. He looked around. It's a homecoming. Then added, more to himself than anyone else, I just didn't know it was someone else's house now. And with that, he stepped away from the bar, past the booths, past the wall with the photo, toward the door. But before he could touch the handle, a voice behind him whispered, don't go. It was Loretta. She was holding the payroll sheet like scripture. I think the place remembers you, even if the people forgot. The door opened. Night air spilled in, and as he stepped into it, he said only one thing, we'll see. He didn't sleep that night. The streets hummed low. Light posts flickered like tired eyes. The city exhaled fog. He sat on a bench across the street from the restaurant he built with calloused hands, watching, remembering, bleeding inward in his coat pocket. The payroll sheet remained folded, faded ink, names of people who once believed in second chances, people the world forgot before they even had a name. He whispered them to himself like prayer. The next morning, Loretta arrived early and no apron yet. Just a tote bag and a cracked phone with gospel music barely playing through busted speakers. When she saw him outside, sitting alone, she froze. You didn't go home? He shook his head. I needed to see the place in daylight. Truth shows up clearer with the sun. She sat beside him. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of what had never been said. Inside, the restaurant buzzed. The manager was speaking with a sharp-dressed man in a gray suit, corporate, smooth-talking, firm handshake type. Yes, sir. We had a little incident last night. Nothing major. Just someone pretending to be the original founder. Caused a stir, but I handled it. The man in the suit raised an eyebrow. Pretending? A waiter who overheard quietly slid away, slipping into the back. He pulled Loretta aside 10 minutes later. There trying to erase him. Said he was just some old guy with a story. Corporate's coming to evaluate. Loretta didn't flinch. She walked out the back door. The old man was still there, watching the wind play with fallen receipts in the alley. She handed him the phone. Talked to her. It was Vanessa, one of the original staff. Now a lawyer, living in D.C. fighting zoning laws for black business owners. When she heard his voice, her tone changed. Mr. Carter? Oh, my God. I thought you were in Atlanta. I came back, he said, but the place forgot me. No, sir, she whispered. They forgot, not the place. That afternoon, she made calls. TO reporters, TO archives, TO a local journalist, who remembered writing about the grand opening in 1986 BY Sunset. The story broke online. Local soul food restaurant erases black founder after corporate takeover. And beneath it, a black and white photo. 0.5 man, one woman, and a young black man in a red tie. Back at the restaurant, things spiraled. Guests arrived asking questions. 0.1 woman said, I came here every Sunday with my grandfather. He told me the man who started this place was a legend. The manager smiled fake and tense. Of course, ma'am. All part of our brand. But someone in the crowd corrected him. He's not a brand. He's a man. Loretta watched it all unfold with the calm of someone who'd seen storms before. And then it happened. He walked back in. Through the same door. Same coat. Same eyes. But this time, he wasn't alone. 0.3 original staffers walked behind him. 0.1 carried a blue folder filled with city permits, tax IDs, handwritten recipes. Proof. He didn't shout. He simply stepped up the bar and said, You wanted evidence. He placed the folder down and added, There's more in my memory than they ever put on paper. The manager rushed over, voice cracking. Sir, this is disruptive. You can't. But corporate had arrived. The man in the gray suit looked from the folder to the article on his phone to the photo on the wall, then to the man standing right in front of him. His voice was quiet. Mr. Carter? The old man nodded. Welcome back. Loretta gasped. Tears didn't fall, but her breath caught like they almost did. Because in that second, for the first time in decades, someone finally said his name like it mattered. But just as relief began to rise, the gray suit added, We'll handle this. Please step aside while we make internal decisions. The old man froze. The warmth in the room cracked. He realized they still didn't see him. They just feared a headline. He stepped back, but not before saying, You don't need to fix this for me. Then turned to the staff. You need to fix this for yourselves. That night, the restaurant wasn't just a dining room. IT became a stage, but reckoning. Not loud, not riotous, but undeniable. Word had spread. Locals, old staff, even a neighborhood pastor. They came quietly, like mourners gathering at a wake, not to mourn a man, but to mourn what had been stolen. The soul of a place built on second chances. Mr. Carter, the man they almost erased, stood near the entrance, not saying much, letting the silence speak louder than any podium ever could. Loretta stood by his side, arms crossed, chin up to a wall of memory that wouldn't crumble this time. Then, from the back of the crowd, a woman stepped forward. She was in her 60s, silver braids tied back, a familiar fire behind her eyes. Mr. Carter, she said. He turned slowly, recognition blooming. Miss Edith, she smiled through glassy eyes. I used to clean your kitchen floors. You once gave me your own shoes when mine split in winter. Gasps. Even the staff paused, not from drama, but the weight of it. He nodded. You still wear grace like a crown, Edith. That moment cracked the wall. Others stepped forward, a cook who started as a dishwasher, a teacher who worked here during college, a delivery driver who said he learned dignity watching Mr. Carter greet everyone. Bankers or busboys, the same. They weren't speeches. They were testimonies. Inside, the corporate man sat at a corner booth, phone buzzing, jaw tight. The manager whispered, We have to get ahead of this. Damage control. Maybe offer him a percentage back. But the suit only asked one question. Did we ever legally remove his ownership stake? The manager stuttered. I don't know. In that pause, the answer was clear to MR. Carter finally spoke, not to them but to the room. I built this place to feed more than stomachs. He tapped the bar. I built it for every black kid who was told he didn't belong in fine dining. He looked at the waiters. For every single mom who needed one chance. Then at the walls. At some point, the name stayed, but the heart left. Someone asked, Will you take it back? He smiled, bittersweet. No, stunned silence. I don't want to take it back. He turned to the staff. I want you to take it forward. That's when Loretta stepped in front of the crowd, bold. Clear. I've worked here 32 years. I've seen owners come and go, but I've never seen anyone fight for us like this man. She looked at the gray suit. We want his name restored. Publicly. Murmurs of agreement. Someone clapped. Then another. Then the whole room rose, not in protest, but praise. The suit stood. We'll review options. There's legal, but the crowd wasn't listening. They had already decided. This was Mr. Carter's house. In spirit, in story, in sweat. Later that night, Loretta brought him a plate, just like old times. He smiled. You still cook like you're writing scripture. She smirked. You still eat like you're searching for heaven. Then from his coat, he pulled a small black notebook. Worn. Pages torn. Smells of grease and time. He handed it to her. What's this? She asked. My recipes. My memories. My fire. She held it close, like a past torch. Outside, the sign above the door flickered. IT still read the corporate name, but someone had taped a note over it. Founded by Carter. Remember the hands that built. And as the night wind picked up, someone began humming an ode. Low, slow, true. Weeks passed. The restaurant kept serving food, but now it also served memory and truth. The corporate office, cornered by headlines, community pressure, and archived contracts, had no choice. They released a formal statement. We acknowledge Mr. Carter as the original founder. His vision shaped our legacy. Polite, legal, sanitized, but too late to take back what was already reclaimed by the people. Loretta stood at the podium on Sunday afternoon. The place was packed, not for dinner, but for a dedication on the far wall, where a trendy abstract painting once hung, now set a new bronze plaque, carved with only 3 lines. Founded in resilience, built on dignity, Carter's table. Always open. He didn't attend the ceremony. Didn't need to. He was down the street that morning, seated on a park bench, feeding pigeons, watching the same people who once overlooked him now gather in his honor. Sometimes legacy doesn't need a spotlight. Sometimes it only needs a breathe. Later that day, Loretta found him in the alley behind the restaurant, where they used to sit and take breaks years ago. She brought a slice of sweet potato pie. He chuckled. Still warm. Still perfect. They ate in silence, until she broke it. They offered to name a scholarship after you. He smiled. Only if it's for kids with dirt under their nails and dreams too loud to be quiet. She nodded. They asked if he'd speak at the university next month. He shrugged. I might. Then added, but only if they let me wear my apron. The two of them laughed. That kind of laugh that comes after storms. Deep, cracked, healing. Across town, a news segment played. A black journalist, young, sharp, stood outside the restaurant. Today, a city remembers the man it nearly erased. Mr. Elijah Carter, founder of what's now known again as Carter's Table, was honored after years of silence. But perhaps the greatest honor came not from a plaque or press release, but from the people who refused to let his name disappear. The screen faded. Back in the alley, Mr. Carter stood up slowly. His knees weren't what they used to be, but they still carried history in every step. He reached into his coat, pulled out a worn envelope. Inside, a photograph, faded at the corners. It was a grand opening, 1986. Him in his red tie, Loretta beside him, pots clanging in the background. He handed it to her. This belongs inside, on the wall. She stared at it, then at him. I'll put it next to the plaque. No, he said gently. Put it in the kitchen, where real legacy lives. She understood. Not everything sacred belongs in the front window. Some things belong in the fire, in the steam, in the hands. As he walked away, she called out, Elijah. He turned. What should we call the pie? He grinned. The redemption slice. That night, a new sign was hung beside the menu. Try our house favorite. The redemption slice, sweet, bold, unforgettable. And for the first time in decades, the old man slept easy. Not because the world had changed, but because he had reminded it how. Legacy isn't carved in marble. It's baked into the hands that never stop feeding hope.